I don't know how this recap's gonna go because I don't know where to start, I don't know where to end, and there's just a whole lot of frustration in between. Towards the end of the episode, I'll start to pick it up, but for the first 2/3 of this episode, it's going to be pretty lacking. Just to give you a heads up, but of course I got to do these reviews in true Bruins fashion. The Montreal Canadiens just handed the Bruins the worst loss in Winter Classic history. These are the same Montreal Canadiens that had lost 11 of their last 13 heading into this game, and the Bruins are now 2-11-2 in their last 15 regular season games against Montreal. This is going to be extremely disjointed because there's just so much to ponder about this game, and I don't really want to put in the effort to kind of sort it all out because it's that mind-boggling. And to be honest, I had the thought before the game. I didn't want to say it out loud because I didn't want it to be true. I didn't want to jinx it. But I had the thought prior to the game, my God, what if this is a blowout for Montreal? My God, what if Montreal scores very, very early? And they did. They did both. David Desharnais gets an early goal a minute and 14 seconds into the game, batting a puck out of midair as the Bruins don't have enough net front presence. That is the absolute story to this game, is the difference in the two teams and their ability to manage net front presence. Boston, barely any traffic in front. Even on their power play, they struggled to get the normal traffic in front. Montreal, 1, 2, maybe even 3 guys at a time in front of Rask, making life absolutely miserable, and their first 4 goals, all deflections or batted in pucks as a result of not enough Bruins defending the front of the net. I don't care if you're the genetic, super modified love child of Brodeur, Hasek, and fucking Wah, you're not going to be able to survive an onslaught like this. And for the Bruins to play their really one of the worst periods I've ever seen. Getting outshot 14-3 in the first period. They went, God, what was it, 14 minutes? 15 minutes or something like that without a shot. Just horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And it's just hard to believe that this actually happened. An early goal in the first period for Desharnais. An early goal in the second period for Paul Byron. A late goal in the second period for Brendan Gallagher put this team on its ass. And yes, you can debate whether or not the Jimmy Hayes goal should have stood. An early whistle for apparent goalie interference, although there was no penalty. I'm sorry, there was no interference on that. That goal should have stood. Way too early of a whistle, but you can't let that dictate how the game goes. You can't let that deflate you. Terrible use of words for Gillette Stadium game. You can't let that deflate you. You have to that has to be motivation to turn it back on, and it just wasn't. They faltered again after that. Matt Bolesky, the hardest working guy on the ice again. I will praise Matt Bolesky all season because he fucking deserves it. He gets his 8th goal of the year. Looks like the Bruins might be able to come back. They're putting a lot of pressure on Montreal. Not as much as Montreal had in the second period. I think it was the second period. It might have been the first period. I'm pretty sure it was the second, though, where it seemed like they had 20 shots in about 5 seconds. Not that level of pressure, but fucking Bolesky gets the goal, deflects a Adam McQuaid shot. Deserves it. Again, his 8th of the year. He and Tuukka Rask were the only reason why this game was close. This could have been 10-0 had it not been for Tuukka Rask. Pacioretty and Paul Byron both get goals. 5-1 final. And again, the Bruins just get absolutely embarrassed on home ice. I mentioned Bolesky and Rask as really the only guys who don't deserve that much blame, and that's just the way I see it. Everybody else really, and there's a couple in particular that deserve to be called out more than others. But those 2 guys are really the only... Nobody can avoid criticism for this game, but they are the only ones that are close to being able to avoid criticism. A lot of these little tidbits for stats are going to be coming from 2 different places. Stanley Cup of Chowder on Twitter and Bruin Stats on Twitter. Link to those 2 handles down below. I encourage any Bruins fan to really check them out. Those guys do a great job. First point, Claude Julien, and this is why he can't avoid criticism. You have the ability to, you have last change. The matchmaking's up to you, unless of course there's an icing, everybody knows that. Zdeno Chara had 8 offensive zone draws and only 1 defensive. Meanwhile, Kevin Miller, Torrey Krug, and Joe Morrow each had 7 defensive draws each. That's mind-boggling that your best defender has only 1 defensive zone draw when those guys have 7. Like, that just, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know what the hell Claude was thinking in terms of that. You know, obviously at the time, you know, if Chara's just coming off, you have no choice but to put somebody else out there, but you have to do a better job of handling the matchups, especially when the fourth line is just getting ripped apart all goddamn game. I'll get into the upcoming schedule later, but we all know this team needs changes. Without David Krejci, it's not going to get better, and obviously now Brad Marchand's going to miss the next 2 games. I'll talk about David Pastrnak in a minute as well. But there are guys on this team who just aren't good enough right now and just aren't making the most of their opportunities. Again, you had, I said this leading up to this game, this was going to be the turning point for these 2 teams. Either Montreal would continue to trend downward until Price gets back, and then they'll kind of rebound from that, and the Bruins would just continue to go up, and the Bruins would have had first place in the Atlantic had they won today, or it was going to be Montreal wins, they get confidence, they get rolling again, and the Bruins start to feel the effects of injuries and underperformance, and that is exactly what is going to happen now. Not to say it's a doomsday scenario. Again, they're still in a good spot, and it's only 1 loss despite it being a major loss. Of course, now they are 2 points back clear of Florida. Both Florida and Boston have 3 games at hand on Montreal. Montreal at 47 points, Florida at 46, Boston at 44. So they are still in a very decent spot to, you know, do something with this season. But the Atlantic Division right now is so goddamn close. Nothing is for sure, particularly with, of course, the limited amount of wild card spots. Number 1 through 6 in the Atlantic Division are separated by 7 points. Montreal at 47, Tampa at 40. The Bruins right now, 4 points separate the Bruins from 3rd in the Atlantic to 6th. Toronto and Buffalo are really the only 2 teams that are somewhat out of the running. Although Toronto's at 35 points, Buffalo's at 34. You never really know. But the Atlantic Division's so tight, you can't afford losses like this. And again, just as far as certain players go, as far as them not being good enough, again, I really got sidetracked there. Brett Connolly continues to not perform. He was a minus player tonight. I don't get it with this guy. He has chances. Looked like he might have gotten injured in this game. Still had 16 minutes of ice time. He needs to fucking figure it out. Louis Eriksson, if he's not scoring, he's practically fucking invisible. He had a couple of chances tonight with 2 shots. Good amount of ice time, but just nothing from him. I'm saving the 4th line for last. Landon Ferraro wasn't too bad, but again, you don't really expect anything major out of him. He's not the big player. Zdeno Chara didn't have his best game. Patrice Bergeron didn't have his best game. Of course, Bolesky gets the goal. Torrey Krug didn't have his best game, and that's just the way it is. Ryan Spooner was alright, but again, he's more of a 3rd-line guy, not a 2nd-line guy, as you're fitting him in. Frankie Vetrano and Alex Kovalchev, invisible, 7 and 6 minutes apiece, both a minus player. And let's talk about how bad they were. Max Talbot, a -4. A -4 for Max Talbot on the ice for 4 goals. He had 11 and a half minutes of ice time. Max Talbot was absolutely brutal in this game. And for someone, you know, a veteran of 2 Winter Classics, you should know what it takes to get it done this game. He was fucking abysmal. Zach Ronaldo, -3, 9.5 minutes on the ice. There have been some just very minuscule bright spots for Zach Ronaldo this season, but at this point, you won't see me defending the Zach Ronaldo acquisition. A 3rd-round pick for this. You cannot tell me otherwise that there aren't more than a handful of players in Providence right now. There are people in the fucking EIHL that could have had a more impressive game than this. Joe Morrow, absolutely brutal, a -3. And again, we all know why Colin Miller was sent down, really being the only defenseman who could be sent down and not be claimed off of waivers. Joe Morrow was absolutely abysmal. I cannot defend his play whatsoever. Seth Griffith, absolutely terrible. In terms of shot differential, again, another stat from @Bruins_stats. 1 shot for while Griffith's on the ice, 7 against in 7 minutes of ice time at that point. He finished with 11 minutes, he had no shots. To his credit, his line had 1 shot at that point. Just mind-boggling how he had just absolutely squandered that chance. Speaking of squandered chances, he didn't really have that big of a chance, but Alex Kovalchev didn't make the most of it. You get called up into the Winter Classic, you only get 6 minutes of ice time. A lot of people say, well, Claude hardly ever played him. He was a -1. He wasn't fucking doing anything. Frankie Vetrano wasn't doing anything. And then the big name people are going to point out, aside from Zach Ronaldo, it's Kevin Miller. Again, someone else who I've defended in the past. He's had a couple of bright spots. You cannot defend Kevin Miller, and Kevin Miller can't defend. This was absolutely abysmal. A -3 and just vacating the front of the net. He's a big part of the reason as to why people had open chances. The Gallagher goal was straight up Kevin Miller's fault for losing track of him. If people want to start a petition to get rid of Ronaldo and Kevin Miller, I won't sign it, but I certainly won't disagree with you. Just absolutely abysmal. Which makes you wonder if there will be new call-ups. Obviously, David Pasternak's not available. He's doing pretty damn well in the World Juniors. It would be amazing to have him. Do I think the move to send him to the World Juniors was a mistake? No, because you want him fully healthy and you want him coming back with confidence. And if the Czech team does really well at the World Juniors, which honestly I kind of lost track of the World Juniors already. I got to look that shit up. But you want Pasta coming back with confidence. But as far as AHL call-ups go, I don't know what else you can do. The big name right now is Austin Czarnik, who is on a great tear down in Providence. But then again, Seth Griffith, 27 points in 24 games down in Providence. And look what he did tonight. Absolutely abysmal. So the depth of this team is really, really being stretched. I certainly don't have the answer, because anytime it looks like the person who gets called up will be in a good spot and will have a solid game or a solid stretch of performances, we get Coco, we get Griffith, and it's not good. And it's not going to get any better. The schedule ahead is absolutely miserable, and maybe this month will be what I thought the month of November will be. They don't play again until Tuesday the 5th against Washington. I'm scared to death that they're just going to get picked apart by Washington. They play New Jersey on the 8th on the road, and then on the 9th they head to Ottawa, Brad Marchand's return game. They have a 5-game road stretch after the Washington game. New Jersey, Ottawa, the Rangers, Philly, Buffalo. How many of those are they going to win? I would say they're capable of winning all 5, but truly, how many are they going to win? It's a tough month ahead, a lot of road games. And despite having some confidence, quite a bit of confidence after the last Ottawa game, it's scary to think that this team might not have as strong of a rebound game as they need to against Washington on Tuesday. And guys, that'll do it for me. I don't even want to think or talk about hockey anymore. That is one of the most disappointing losses and one of the most embarrassing performances I can remember seeing from a Bruins team. And I said in the alumni review, it wouldn't have hurt to have Recchi, Sturm, and Samsonov on the third line. I'm starting to think it really wouldn't have. They might have put up a better fight than Talbot and Griffith did. And Ronaldo, just my God. So again, that'll do it for this one. All credit to the Montreal Canadiens. They absolutely deserve this win. No excuses. The Bruins simply weren't good enough. And whether or not they can rebound, time will tell. But the optimism is certainly out the window for the time being. But I thank you all for watching. Leave a like down below if you've enjoyed. Subscribe for more. Of course, I do recaps after every single Bruins game. Spread the word as well, particularly if you're a Bruins fan that has friends who are also into the Bruins. Of course, I'm still looking at potentially changing this up. Obviously, right now, it's kind of more like a podcast form. Just, hey, have this tab open. while you browse Reddit or whatever. But it is what it is for now. I need to stop rambling. I'm just so goddamn frustrated. Again, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.